Hello everyone. So if you've been following me, you know that I have released the very first pattern. It is called Star Voyage. If you've seen it on my Facebook and on the Vector Quilts Facebook, you can also see it on Instagram, and you can also see it here in the packaging that I have. It is also the quilts that I have displayed here behind me on the wall. One is with a black background and one is with a white background. So this is the video series for piecing the foundations for Star Voyage. So the very first piece that we are going to do is the border blocks. There is a block A and a block B. It takes 3 A's and 3 B's to make each side for the border. So what we're going to do here is I am going to show you how to piece block A and block B, and then we'll make one side and show you how those are completed. So I have my fabrics. They are labeled with the number that we piece in, and they're also labeled with the letter that corresponds with the colors. So the very first one we're going to start with is 1C, which is the teal. All of the cutting measurements are listed in the pattern instructions. Also, it shows you in the instructions how to do the assembly. You can use the video as a guide to quilt along with me, and when you're done, you're going to create a beautiful quilt. So we're going to put just a little bit of glue. I use glue. You can use a glue stick, you can use Elmer's glue dots, you can use pins. So what I'm doing here is I'm just putting my first piece on, and I'm going to flip it over and make sure when I see, you can see through the foundation that I'm using. This is by Stable Piecing. They are printing the patterns on this for me. I can see that I don't have 1/4 of an inch, so I'm going to lift it back off and move it over just a little bit. And then when I flip it back over, I can see that I have it. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to use our template, and we're going to lay it just right on the line between 1A and 1C and 2B. We're going to fold over and lay our add 1/4 ruler on, and we're going to trim. So now that I have that trimmed, I can take my piece for 2A, and all I'm going to do is I'm going to look at my lines through the stable foundation. You can't see it really good on video, but you'll be able to see it when you're working and piecing. I want to make sure I got enough on each side that it's going to at least go 1/4 of an inch past the seam. I'm just going to line it right up on the very edge I just trimmed and take it to my machine. I'm going to flip it over. I'm going to lay it at my machine, and I'm going to start back in the seam allowance. Lift up the edge, make sure it's still lined up. My stitch length will be about 1.6. So I'm just going to start. I'm going to sew straight down that line. Then I'm going to check, make sure I'm still lined up. Then I can sew completely down the line and into the seam allowance. So then what I'm going to do is I'm going to come back over here. I'm going to flip my fabric over. I'm going to use my iron. You can use an iron. You can finger press if you like. You can also use a wooden roller. I like using the iron. So then I'm going to come back and I'm going to put my template on, right on my line, and fold again. I've got a little bit here into the seam allowance that's pulling up, so I'm just going to pull it down. put my add a quarter ruler on and trim. So then I'm going to put my 3A piece. We'll line that up right on the edge and take it to my machine. We'll check, make sure I'm still lined up. I'm going to come back, we'll fold it over, and I'm going to press. Now I'm going to do between 1C and 4B, again laying my guide template right on the line, fold it over, trim, and I'm going to take my 4B piece and lay it right on it. Check and make sure that I'm lined up. And come back and press. Do the same thing for 5A. And lay my piece of fabric down for 5A. And then I'm going to check again, make sure I'm lined up, and I'm going to stitch. We'll fold it over and press. So that's how you make block A for the outer border. We're going to do the same thing for block B. A little dab of glue from the glue stick to hold it. Put it on, I'm going to flip it over and make sure I have enough. I don't have enough here on this end, so I'm going to shift it down. So now I have enough. I can take my guide template. If you don't have the template, you can use a piece of cardboard, a piece of cardstock. So I'll just trim. If you do want one of the templates, I do have them on my website at vectorquilts.com, but like I said, you don't have to have them. I do like it, just because it gives me it's the right thickness for the add a quarter, add an eighth to butt up against. Alright, so now I've got it lined here at my machine. I lift it up and look, everything's lined up, and I'm going to stitch. Come over and press. A couple of things you do want to remember. You always want to start into your seam allowance and end in your seam allowance. Don't start and stop right at the edge, because what this will do is when you sew your next stitch and you go over it when you're sewing the blocks together, It will help lock those stitches in. I'm going to stitch between 2A, 2B and 3A, making sure my fabric is lined up. And then come back and press. One other thing to remember too is the fabric pieces, when you paper piecing, are always going to be a little bit bigger because you are doing points and angles. So don't fret about that. When you get into more advanced patterns, the pieces, the fabric does get smaller. But on this is considered a beginner level pattern, and this is just helping you learn the technique and getting used to trimming and stitching on the lining, lining up the pieces. So now we have the B block done. You can use the template to trim it on the dotted lines. So now I have the B block trimmed, lay it aside, and I'm going to trim the A block. And I am enclosing my rotary cutter after each cut. I know that a couple people said it really scared them watching me do my pineapple mug rug because I'd lay it down without closing it. So I am closing it. Okay, so now I have the A and B block done. So now what we're going to do is we're going to stitch them together. These go together just like this. So all we do is we lay them down, and you can tap them just like cards. when you look inside, you should see the two pieces line up, and you can go over to your machine. And what we're going to do, and this is what I always recommend that you do to start, is set it up to a basting stitch of about 3 and baste down the line. When you flip it over to the back, you should see that your bobbin stitch has went straight with the line. And then when you open it up, you will see that your points match up. And once you see that's lined up, all you do is turn your stitch length back down and stitch back over it. If it doesn't line up, then you can take the basting stitch out. Okay, so we are going to press it over. We can hit it with the iron for a second. Alright, so there we have a block A and block B joined. So here I have 2 more already completed. It takes 3 of these to make one side. So what we're going to come back and do is we're going to sew block B to block A. And it's going to be 5A matches 5A. And again, you can baste them, make sure they line up. You look at the back and you can see that it's on the line, and you open it up and your points are there. So what you want to do then is drop your stitch length back down and finish it. We're going to sew the last one together. Again, 5A to 5A. Line it up. Make sure your points are lined up. Flip it over, make sure you're on the line, and you can open it up and see that your points are lined up. So we're going to stitch this one. And we're just going to finger press all of our seams the same way. And there you have your border blocks together for one side. You would make 3 more of these for your border blocks. So in the next segment, we're going to do the center medallion. It is a bigger version. It will teach you, it's got 8 pieces in it for each quarter block or half block. And it will give you a bit more with what you can do per piece in creating these fine points and doing the different turns and everything. So I hope that you follow along through this with me. The next video will be released in a day or 2. If you've already ordered the pattern for Star Voyage, you should be receiving it shortly, and you can follow along and work on creating your beautiful quilt. if you haven't ordered it yet, you can order it from my website, vectorquilts.com, and you can work with this quilt right along with me. As always, if you have any questions or anything, you can also leave a comment or a message on YouTube. You can reach me on Facebook. Thank you, and I look forward to seeing what you create.